My name is Sarah Johnson, and I'm 32 years old. For the longest time, I thought I had it all. A loving husband, a cozy little house in the suburbs, and the kind of life that looked like it came straight out of a picture-perfect movie. My husband, Tom, was charming, successful, and the kind of man who could make anyone feel special. We had been married for 7 years, and while our relationship wasn't always perfect, I believed we were happy, or at least that's what I thought.
It all began on an ordinary Wednesday. Tom had been coming home late more often than usual, always blaming work deadlines or business meetings. I didn't think much of it at first. He had always been ambitious, and I admired that about him. But this time, something felt different. He was distracted, irritable, and distant. He barely looked at me when we talked, and his usual warmth seemed to have disappeared. One night, I was folding laundry in the living room when his phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at it instinctively. A message popped up on the screen. "I can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." My heart stopped. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling. The message was from someone named Liz. My stomach churned as I scrolled through their chat history, each message feeling like a dagger to my heart. Their conversations were filled with flirtation, intimate details, and plans for secret meetings. It was all there in black and white, the proof that my husband was having an affair.
For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, cry, and throw his phone across the room, but instead I sat there in stunned silence, my mind racing. Why? How long had this been going on? What had I done wrong?
When Tom came home that night, I confronted him. I showed him the messages and demanded an explanation. His reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of apologizing or showing any remorse, he exploded. "How dare you go through my phone?" he yelled, his face red with anger. "Do you even trust me? You're paranoid, Sarah."
Paranoid? I shot back, my voice shaking. You're cheating on me, Tom. How can you even try to deny it?
But he didn't deny it. Instead, he did something worse. He turned it all on me.
You're the reason I had to look elsewhere, he spat. You're always nagging, always questioning me. Do you know how exhausting that is? Maybe if you were a better wife, I wouldn't have had to find someone else. I was speechless. His words hit me like a freight train. He wasn't just blaming me for his infidelity. He was painting himself as the victim. That night, I cried myself to sleep. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly alone. But amidst the tears and heartbreak, a fire began to burn within me. If Tom thought he could gaslight me and walk away unscathed, he was sorely mistaken. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. The next morning, I started to plan. Tom's family adored me, and his friends often praised our relationship as something they admired. They had no idea who he really was or what he was capable of. If he wanted to paint me as the villain, I'd show everyone the truth. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Tom was cunning and manipulative, but I had one advantage, the truth, and I was going to use it to expose him for who he really was. The morning after our fight, I woke up with a pounding headache and puffy eyes from crying all night. But I also woke up with a new sense of purpose. If Tom thought he could pin his affair on me and walk away unscathed, he was in for a rude awakening. I was done playing the helpless victim. My first step was to gather evidence. I needed irrefutable proof of his lies and deceit. Tom had underestimated me, assuming I'd quietly accept his betrayal. What he didn't realize was that I was meticulous, resourceful, and more than capable of uncovering the truth.
I started by digging through his phone. Tom wasn't exactly tech-savvy, and his password was the same one he'd used for years, our wedding date. How ironic. Once inside, I took screenshots of every incriminating message and email I could find. Liz wasn't the only one he'd been chatting with. There were at least 2 other women he had been flirting with over the past year. Then I turned to his laptop. Tom had grown careless, leaving it open and unlocked in the evenings. I combed through his emails, his social media messages, and even his calendar. I found hotel reservations, dinner bookings, and a few receipts for expensive gifts I had never seen. My stomach turned with every discovery, but I kept going. Finally, I checked our shared bank account. Tom had been withdrawing large sums of cash and making unusual transactions. A spa day here, a jewelry purchase there, it all added up. He had been living a double life, and I was determined to expose him. Once I had everything, I saved it onto a secure flash drive and backed it up in the cloud. I wasn't taking any chances, but I needed more than just digital evidence. I needed witnesses, people who could back me up when the time came. That's when I decided to reach out to Kelly, my best friend since college. She had always been my rock, and I knew I could trust her. When I told Kelly everything, she was livid. "That son of a, how dare he blame you for his own cheating," she exclaimed. "Sarah, you can't let him get away with this."
I won't, I said, my voice firm, but I need your help. Together, we devised a plan. Kelly worked in event planning and had a knack for creating scenarios that drew people together. We decided to host a small gathering at our house, a casual dinner party for Tom's family and close friends. He wouldn't suspect a thing, and it would give me the perfect opportunity to expose his lies. Over the next week, I pretended everything was fine. I played the part of the doting wife, cooking his favorite meals and even laughing at his jokes. It was exhausting, but it worked. Tom had no idea I was plotting his downfall.
The day of the party arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. Kelly helped me set up the house, arranging the food, drinks, and seating. Tom's parents, his sister, and a few of his closest friends showed up, all smiling and cheerful. Tom, oblivious to what was coming, greeted everyone with his usual charm.
As the evening went on, I could feel the tension building inside me. I waited until everyone was settled in the living room with their drinks before making my move. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "It means so much to me to have you all here. There's something I need to share, something I've been holding in for a long time." Tom's smile faltered. He glanced at me with a hint of suspicion, but he didn't say anything. I took a deep breath and continued. "For the past few months, I've been dealing with something incredibly painful. I've discovered that the man I trusted most in the world has been lying to me, betraying me in ways I never imagined." The room went silent. All eyes were on me.
Tom shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" he asked, feigning innocence. "I'm talking about you, Tom," I said, my voice rising. "I'm talking about your affair with Liz, and let's not forget the other women, the lies and the deception."
Gasps filled the room. Tom's mother looked horrified, his sister's jaw dropped, and his friends exchanged shocked glances. "You're crazy?" Tom stammered, his face turning red. "You don't have any proof?" "Don't I?" I pulled out the flash drive and plugged it into the TV. With a few clicks, I began displaying the screenshots of his messages, the receipts, and the damning evidence I had collected. The room erupted into chaos. Tom's mother burst into tears, his sister started yelling at him, and his friends looked at him with a mix of disgust and disbelief.
Tom tried to defend himself, but the evidence was undeniable. "This is all out of context," he shouted. "You're just trying to make me look bad." "You did that all on your own," I said coldly.
As I stood there watching the facade of Tom's perfect life crumble, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. This was only the beginning, but it was enough to let him know that I wasn't the naive, forgiving wife he thought I was. The room was in chaos. Tom's mother, a soft-spoken woman who had always treated me like her own daughter, was sobbing uncontrollably. His sister, Emily, paced the room, her hands clenched into fists. His friends sat in stunned silence, their gazes bouncing between me and Tom like they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Tom, on the other hand, looked like a man cornered. His face was red with rage, his fists clenched at his sides. "You had no right to air our private matters like this, Sarah," he spat, his voice shaking. "Private matters?" I shot back, my voice unwavering. "You mean the lies, the betrayal, the cheating? That's what you want to keep private, Tom? Because I'm pretty sure marriage is supposed to be about trust, and you broke that a long time ago." Tom's mother spoke up, her voice trembling. "Tom, is this true? Have you really been cheating on Sarah?"
He hesitated, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. It's not what it looks like," he muttered. "She's blowing things out of proportion." "Blowing things out of proportion," I said, letting out a bitter laugh. "Let me remind everyone of some highlights." I turned back to the TV and clicked through a few more screenshots, pausing on the most incriminating messages. "Does last night was amazing look like something I made up? Or how about this dinner reservation for 2 at that fancy steakhouse last month? The same night you told me you were working late." His sister Emily turned on him. "I can't believe this, Tom. How could you do this to Sarah? She's been nothing but good to you." "You don't understand," Tom yelled, his composure cracking. "Things haven't been good between us for a long time. I was unhappy." "Unhappy?" I repeated, my voice rising. "And instead of talking to me about it or working through it, you decided to sleep with other women? That's your excuse?" Tom's friends exchanged awkward glances, clearly unsure of what to do or say. One of them, Mark, finally spoke up. "Tom, man, this is messed up. I can't believe you'd do something like this."
The tension in the room was suffocating, but I wasn't done yet. I turned to Tom's mother, who was still clutching a tissue and dabbing at her eyes. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," I said gently. "But I thought you deserved to know the truth." Oh. She nodded, her lips trembling. "You've always been like a daughter to me, Sarah. I can't believe he would do this." "Mom, don't," Tom started, but she cut him off. "Don't you dare, Tom," she snapped, her voice suddenly firm. "Sarah is right. Marriage is about trust, and you broke that. I'm ashamed of you." Tom looked like he wanted to disappear. His arrogance, his confidence, all of it had been stripped away, and for the first time I saw him for what he really was, a coward. Yeah.
As the party disbanded, I could feel the weight of the evening settling over everyone. Tom's family and friends left one by one, each of them shooting me sympathetic looks and him glares of disapproval. Once the house was empty, Tom turned to me, his face a mask of fury. "You've humiliated me," he hissed. "You humiliated yourself," I shot back. "All I did was reveal the truth."
"You think this is over?" he sneered. "You think you can ruin my life and walk away clean? Think again, Sarah." I didn't respond. I just stared at him, my heart pounding. His words were a threat, but I wasn't afraid. If he thought he could intimidate me into backing down, he didn't know me at all. That night, I packed a bag and left. I wasn't ready to file for divorce just yet. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed first, but I couldn't stay under the same roof as him any longer. I went to Kelly's house, where she greeted me with a hug and a glass of wine. "You did amazing tonight," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I've never seen a man squirm like that." I smiled weakly. It felt good in the moment, but now, I don't know. What if he tries to spin this against me? "He can try," Kelly said with a shrug. "But you've got the truth on your side, and besides, he's the one who looks bad, not you." Her words gave me some comfort, but I knew the battle wasn't over. Tom was prideful, vindictive, and used to getting his way. If he was determined to fight back, I had to be ready. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. It was time to take control of my life and ensure that Tom couldn't manipulate or bully me any further. But as I sat in the lawyer's office discussing my options, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tom was already plotting his next move. And I was right. Tom wasted no time in retaliating. Barely a day had passed since the disastrous dinner party when I received a flurry of texts from mutual friends, all echoing the same sentiment. "Tom says you're lying. He claims you're trying to ruin his life out of spite. And what's really going on, Sarah?" He was spinning the narrative, painting himself as the victim and me as the vindictive wife out for revenge. It was infuriating, but not surprising. I knew Tom well enough to expect this. His charm was his weapon, and he was wielding it against me with precision. The real blow came 2 days later when I received a call from my employer. "Sarah, we've had some complaints," my manager said hesitantly. "Apparently there are rumors circulating about you accusations that could affect the company's image." "Accusations?" I repeated, stunned. "What accusations?" My manager sighed. "I think it's best if we discuss this in person. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" I agreed, my mind racing. Tom. This had to be his doing. He was trying to sabotage my career, knowing how much I valued my job, but I wasn't about to let him succeed. That evening, I met with my lawyer again. "He's trying to smear my reputation," I said, laying out everything that had happened since the party. "What can I do?" "First, document everything," she advised. "Every text, every call, every interaction. And second, be proactive. If he's spreading lies, counter them with the truth." The next morning, I walked into my manager's office armed with a folder of evidence. Whoa. "I understand there have been complaints," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'd like to address them." He nodded, gesturing for me to sit. "There are allegations that you've been involved in inappropriate behavior, including spreading personal drama at work." I opened the folder and handed him a series of screenshots. "These are messages from my husband, Tom, who has been spreading false information about me. He's trying to damage my reputation because I exposed his infidelity. I have plenty of evidence to back up my claims." My manager reviewed the documents, his expression shifting from concern to understanding. Sarah, I had no idea. I'm sorry you're going through this. I'll make sure these allegations don't affect your standing here. Relief washed over me. One battle won, but the war was far from over. Meanwhile, Tom's smear campaign was in full swing. He was reaching out to friends, colleagues, and even distant acquaintances, spinning a web of lies to paint me as unstable and vengeful. It was exhausting to keep up with the damage control, but I refused to let him win. I decided it was time to take things to the next level. With my lawyer's guidance, I filed for divorce and requested a restraining order. The restraining order wasn't just about physical protection, it was about sending a message. Tom needed to understand that I wasn't afraid of him or his games. When Tom was served the divorce papers, his reaction was predictable. He called me in a fury, screaming into the phone, "You think you can just end this on your terms? You'll regret this, Sarah. Mark my words." I hung up without responding. His threats no longer scared me, they only fueled my determination. The next step in my plan was to reclaim my narrative. I reached out to Tom's family and close friends, sharing the full story along with the evidence I had gathered. I made it clear that I wasn't seeking sympathy or support, I simply wanted them to know the truth. To my surprise, many of them sided with me. His mother called me in tears, apologizing for her son's behavior. Emily, his sister, offered to testify on my behalf if it came to that. Even a few of his friends reached out, expressing their disgust with his actions, but not everyone was on my side. A handful of his friends, particularly the ones who had known him for years, bought into his narrative. They accused me of overreacting, of airing dirty laundry that should have stayed private. "You're making a mistake, Sarah," one of them said during a phone call. "Tom isn't a bad guy, you're just hurt right now." "Hurt doesn't excuse what he did," I replied firmly. "I'm not the one who cheated, lied, and tried to ruin someone's life." As the days turned into weeks, the tension escalated. Tom was fighting me on every front, contesting the divorce, refusing to cooperate with the restraining order, and continuing to spread lies, but I stayed focused, leaning on my lawyer, Kelly, and the truth to guide me.
Then, one day, I received an unexpected email. It was from one of the other women Tom had been involved with, a woman named Rachel.
"I don't know if you'll believe me," the email began, "but I had no idea Tom was married. He told me he was single and looking for something serious. I feel awful about everything and want to help if I can." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Rachel's message was a game changer. If she was willing to speak out, it could strengthen my case and further expose Tom's lies. I replied, arranging to meet her for coffee. When we met, she brought along a stack of messages, photos, and even a few love letters Tom had written to her. "He's a master manipulator," she said, shaking her head. "But I won't let him keep getting away with this."
Neither would I.
Armed with Rachel's evidence and her willingness to testify, I felt more confident than ever. Tom had underestimated me, and now his web of lies was unraveling faster than he could repair it. I was no longer the heartbroken wife crying alone in the dark. I was a woman on a mission to reclaim her life and expose the truth. The turning point came during a court hearing for the restraining order. My lawyer presented the evidence we had gathered, the text messages, the receipts, the emails, and now Rachel's testimony. Rachel, dressed professionally and speaking with conviction, described her experience with Tom. "He told me he was single, that he wanted to build a future with me," she said, her voice steady. "I had no idea he was married until Sarah reached out. I felt sick when I found out the truth."
Tom's lawyer attempted to discredit her, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge granted the restraining order and admonished Tom for his behavior, warning him to cease all attempts at harassment or face legal consequences.
After the hearing, Tom confronted me outside the courthouse. His face was a mask of anger, but there was a flicker of desperation in his eyes. "You think you've won, don't you?" he snarled. "This isn't over, Sarah." "Yes, Tom," I said, meeting his gaze without flinching. "It is." From that moment, I felt a sense of liberation. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of his deceit crushing me. But my mission wasn't over yet. I needed to ensure that everyone in our lives knew the full extent of his lies, not for revenge, but for closure. With Kelly's help, I organized a truth bomb campaign. I sent a detailed email to a select group of people, our families, mutual friends, and anyone Tom had tried to manipulate. The email included a timeline of events, key pieces of evidence, and a heartfelt message about why I had chosen to share my story.
"I'm not doing this to vilify Tom," I wrote. I'm doing this to clear my name and ensure the truth is known. Everyone deserves to make their own judgments based on facts, not fabrications. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from people who had once sided with Tom or remained neutral. His mother called me again, apologizing profusely and expressing her disappointment in her son. "I raised him better than this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Sarah."
Meanwhile, Tom's life began to crumble. Word of his behavior spread, tarnishing his reputation both personally and professionally. The women he had deceived started sharing their own stories, further isolating him. His friends began distancing themselves, and even his closest allies were forced to confront the undeniable truth. But I wasn't interested in watching him suffer. I was focused on rebuilding my own life. With the divorce finalized and the restraining order in place, I moved into a new apartment. It was small and modest, but it was mine, a fresh start free from the shadows of my past. I poured my energy into my work, my friendships, and my hobbies, rediscovering the person I had been before Tom's betrayal. One day, as I was scrolling through my emails, I came across a message from a woman I didn't recognize. "Hi, Sarah," it read. "I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story. I was in a similar situation, and your courage has inspired me to take control of my life. You're stronger than you realize." Oh. Tears welled up in my eyes as I read her words. I hadn't set out to inspire anyone. I had simply wanted to survive. But knowing that my journey had helped someone else gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. Months later, I ran into Emily, Tom's sister, at a local coffee shop. She hugged me tightly, her eyes filled with warmth. "You look amazing," she said. "I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself." "Thank you," I replied, smiling. "It hasn't been easy, but I finally feel like I'm where I'm meant to be." As we sat and chatted, I realized how much I had grown. The pain, the betrayal, and the chaos had all been catalysts for change, pushing me to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Tom's lies had nearly destroyed me, but in the end, they became the foundation for my transformation. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free.